As people going through the education process, we wanted to see the correlation between average years spent in school and overall income. Looking at the Gapminder graph, it shows that, as expected, there is an overall positive correlation between years spent in school and income. However, the data Gapminder gives us is only for men above 25 years of age. Since a lot of people drop out of school to work or get jobs, and these people generally get low-paying jobs, the data is likely to be skewed. Whilst diving into the depth of our topic, we assumed and ultimately saw that greater education would result in a larger income per person. However, we knew that the cultural differences among different countries across the globe could skew the data based on their view of gender roles. To test this, we closely examined the United States, a country with higher gender equality, compared to Pakistan, which is known for gender inequality. We were not surprised to find out that the Gapminder graphs of women 25 plus and men 25 plus in the United States showcased very similar results. Both genders received about equal education and earned identical incomes. In 1970, women received about 11 years of education to the men's 11.3 years. However, they both earned about $23.9 thousand. As the graph moves to 2009, we notice men and women both receive 13.7 years of education and earn $48.6 thousand. This showcases our initial prediction of a positive correlation between education and income. On the other hand, examining the graphs of women 25 plus and men 25 plus in Pakistan, we were surprised to discover that women received far less education than men. However, they still managed to earn identical incomes. In 1970, women received about 0.3 years of education to their counterparts' 1.5 years. But, contrary to our initial prediction, they both earned about $1,760. Fast forwarding to 2009, the graph puts women's years of education at 2.4 years to the men's 5.4 years. However, once again, the incomes remain the same at $4,230, despite the fact that women receive about half the education that men do. As a country with strong gender differences, we were expecting women to make less than the men. This could be due to the fact that possibly the jobs in Pakistan do not require much education to be hired. For example, unskilled jobs such as construction doesn't require an education as opposed to being a doctor or a scientist. This can explain the graphs showing men and women in Pakistan differing in education but being the same in income. We also realized that there are many differences between the education systems in different countries. To explore these differences, we decided to see if the amount of resources in different countries better explained the Gapminder graph. For example, a country that spends more money on education would have schools that students get more out of compared to a school that spends less money on education. To compare countries, we looked at two different measures of expenditure on resources: average teacher salary and average amount of money spent on student. According to the National Center for Educational Statistics, Mexico spends about $2,800 per student, while the Netherlands spends over $10,000 per student. The other value for resource we looked at was teacher salary. More money spent on teachers would suggest that the teachers are also higher quality because high salaries give incentive for better teachers to try to work for schools. Conversely, poor teacher pay is an example of a brain drain that would cause good teachers to avoid teaching in certain countries and move to other countries with higher pay. According to Business Insider, Mexico again ranks in the bottom 10 in teacher pay, while the Netherlands is among the 10 best for teacher salary. We would expect, due to the big gap between money spent per student, that income growth would be higher for students in the Netherlands than in Mexico for the same amount of schooling. This would be because people in the Netherlands theoretically have a much more productive school system. When looking at the Gapminder graph for these two countries, Mexico and the Netherlands both see men over 25 have spent more years at school, but Mexico's slope is almost flat in comparison to the Netherlands, indicating that more schooling in the Netherlands is far more effective than in Mexico in converting years in school to income. However, this comparison is very flawed as both Mexico and the Netherlands have vastly different political and economic climates that confound any clear correlation. To increase our sample size, we decided to look at another pair of countries from the opposite side of the resource spectrum. The US both has high teacher pay and high expenditure on individual students, while Turkey has low teacher pay and low expenditure on individual students. Again, it can be seen that Turkey and the United States have drastically different growth rates. While both countries have a positive slope, the slope of the United States is far greater than that of Turkey. With all four countries plotted, the graph of Mexico mirrors Turkey, while the graph of the United States is similar to that of the Netherlands. While this evidence is not entirely conclusive, it strongly suggests that the more resources spent on schools, the more benefit students get income-wise.